Hey, this is Ryan from Dakota Angler and Outfitter, and today we're going to be tying a jigged crawdad pattern that we use a lot for smallmouth locally. We're using a 2-aught Gamakatsu 60-degree jig hook, 280 denier burnt orange ultra thread, and to begin with you just start your thread at the front of the hook, and like a lot of smallmouth or warmwater flies, kind of build a base that you're going to set your dumbbell eyes on. Keeps them from spinning around the hook so much. And we're going to use a set of large dual pupil, double pupil dumbbell eyes. And really cinch these things down. Don't be afraid to put a ton of thread on these, because it makes a big difference in like the long-term durability of your fly. This is usually one of the first things that comes apart or starts to spin on a fly, and with 280 denier thread you can pull on it pretty good and get them cinched down. Alright, so once you get that done, make sure they're kind of centered on top of the hook. Bring your thread about even with the barb of the hook, maybe between the barb and the point. About there. Then we're going to take a piece of orange foam and cut it pretty wide. I'd say about 1/4 of an inch, maybe 3/8 of an inch wide. And you're actually going to just tie that in. Just set it on top of the hook to begin with, like this. Tie it down like so. And make sure that's tied down and make sure it's centered. With this, a few more wraps and a little less tension is usually good. Like that. And then I trim it like so, and then kind of just trim the corners off of it a little bit. Gives it a little better overall look. Try and make them fairly even, like that. What that does, it kind of helps keep the claw end of your fly up, so the fly is more like this angle rather than being flat. So now what we do is we're going to take 2 pieces of hot tip barred rabbit strips. And you kind of want these angled. I mean, the fly is going to ride like this, so you want these angled kind of up. So you have to set them kind of at that angle when you're tying them down, like so. And flip it over and do one on this side as well. And these are just the claws of the crayfish, and these are, again, the leather kind of wants to float on these, the hide does, so it helps keep the butt end of your fly up like a crayfish would sit in the water. So once we've got our legs, and you kind of want them splayed out to the sides like that, we're going to take and tie in a Nature Spirit orange schlappen hackle. And I like them pretty big. I like these flies to have a lot of movement in the water. And you can get creative with these. You don't necessarily need to tie it exactly like we do, but it's a fly that lends itself really well to being creative with it and changing materials and etc. So using this, I trimmed the end of it into a little triangle tie-in point. Bring your thread back up onto there and tie that hackle down. And what I do at the back is I'll do a little orange dubbing hot spot, kind of a burnt orange color, at the back of the hook. And this will kind of, if you do apply this dubbing fairly thin, and we'll do the rest of the body pretty fat, helps keep kind of a level profile throughout the fly, since you have a big bump from tying all that stuff in back here. Like that. And then we're using brown Dave Whitlock SLF dubbing. And what we're going to do to begin with is take our dubbing about halfway between this orange spot and the eyes. And this fly's fat. I mean, make it pretty big. Don't be afraid to put a lot of dubbing on there. The hook is heavy, the eyes are heavy. You're going to have no problem getting down to the bottom, I don't think, by any means. like so. And when you're using this much dubbing, you about have to twist it between every wrap, I think. Makes the fly turn out a lot more even. The body turns out a lot flatter that way. So now what we're going to do is take a couple of perfectly barred silly legs. These are kind of an olive color. You can, again, this fly lends itself really well to creativity, and you can use a bunch of different materials and colors and etc. on this fly. We're going to use three on each side. Oops, I dropped one. Alright, so you kind of line the ends of your rubber legs up. We're using 3. And what I do, I just fold it around the thread, tie it in right on top of the hook, and they kind of naturally splay to the sides that way. And then you can just tie them down from there. Sometimes you'll have to help them to either side, and once you dub in front of this, it'll help keep them on the sides too. And for now, I just leave this long and take another clump of dubbing. You're going to go all the way up to the eyes with this one. Of the same brown SLF Dave Whitlock dubbing. And kind of take and fold. You can kind of manipulate where your legs go when you wrap your dubbing in front of them. So kind of fold the legs off to the sides again. You can go back onto them a little bit and then continue to go forward. And this fly takes a lot of dubbing, so don't be afraid to use a bunch. Everybody ends up making a lot of crawdad patterns too thin. Crawdads are pretty big. Crawdads and crayfish are pretty big, meaty creatures, so don't be afraid to make your flies the same. And just use up your dubbing there. Alright, so then I'll trim the legs. The leg length is kind of personal preference, honestly. I like them long so they move quite a bit, but not so long that they're always getting fouled up on the hook. So about like that. I'd say around a hook length roughly, maybe just a touch longer. So take another clump of dubbing, and you're going to go around the eyes and then do a little bump of dubbing in front of the eyes with this. So make this one just a little thinner than you've been tying them. And then go around the eyes. And you're just kind of covering up the thread with this, more or less. You're not really trying to make any bulk with around the eyes because it's already pretty bulky there. And then do a couple wraps of dubbing just right in front of the eyes. And a lot of times I'll throw a 1/2 inch in here just to make sure it doesn't slide down onto the angled part of the jig hook when I'm wrapping my hackle. And then a nice trick to do with these is when you're wrapping the hackle, sometimes it'll get caught in the legs. So take all your legs, fold them forward, and then do a wrap or 2. A lot of times I'll do 2 around them. And all you're doing with that is holding your legs away from the hackle when you're wrapping it. So now with this, schlopping, you really kind of got to really focus on folding it back with every turn. So just start wrapping it. The first one's always a little wonky, you kind of got to fold them back. And then just keep going and folding your hackle back. So then right there I got to where the legs are tied in. So I can undo that. You kind of got to sneak it between the legs. I prefer to do it on the bottom of the hook, like so. And when you get to the bottom of these feathers, a lot of times you'll have to pull the fibers away because they want to get stuck to themselves and get stuck to the stem. And then now, when you reach the eyes, again I prefer to cross underneath of the eyes. And I do just one more wrap in front. And hold it up. Make sure you're not going to trap any fibers down. And tie it down. And do a couple wraps. It doesn't take a lot of thread tension to tighten these down. There you go. trim your hackle off. And then I've got a little extra right here I need to cut. Kind of fold all these back, make a nice little small head on the fly. And then you can kind of, when you get to the end, you can kind of manipulate your legs around the hook a little bit. Then I you gotta be careful of that when you're tying these. You don't want your thread to slide down onto this angled part. So you gotta be careful when you're doing your whip finish, especially if you're doing it with your hands. With a tool it would work a little better. And just do a whip finish there. Tighten your thread down. This 280, make sure you pull on it pretty good before you trim it to make sure everything's cinched. And that's it. You can kind of manipulate the fly back around. You're a lot of squeezing on it when you're tying it, but a lot of times I'll take and kind of fold the hackle around the eyes, makes it look a little better. But it's a great fly, especially for smallmouth bass fishing really rocky points and kind of rock shelves. I've caught a lot of smallmouth on this fly. It's just kind of a big, buggy looking fly that's nice and heavy and gets down quick to where the fish are. Thanks.